So in this next and final part of our tutorial, we're going to go over how to make a nice scene for this nice avocado that we've modeled together. So we're here in the materials in the shading view. We're going to go back into our layout. So if you go up here, you're going to see layout. Now we're back to this kind of world where we can start laying things out. The first things is, of course, we need to see where some materials, right? We can't see it. So we're going to change back into our render view. Again, that's the viewports are up here, but the easiest way is with Z. You just hold Z and then go to whatever render view that you're doing. And as you can see, there's no lights. There's nothing going on into our avocado. And so you can the reason why we could see things before is because you turned off the scene lights in the scene world and you're using this kind of HDRI. That's kind of random. So we're going to actually turn that back on so we can use our own, and we're going to start doing some things to our avocado. First thing we want to do, so we're going to start moving it around. So we don't want to move it and then have to move the seed together or having to select both at the same time. What we can do is select both and then join them again. They came joined from the beginning, but they had different materials, so that's why we had to separate them. But now they have their own material, and the materials don't merge when you merge objects. So that's a great thing about Blender. Now they're one object with their own material each. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move it up a little bit, kind of laid down to the floor. The way I moved it up is with G. With G you move, and then to whatever axis you want to snap it onto, you just click the name of the axis. So if I want to snap it to X, just click X. If I want to snap it to Y, just click Y. If I want to snap it to Z, just click Z. And that's the easiest way to move it up. G and Z. So you snap it to the Z axis. And for example, I also want to rotate it a little bit. So if I go onto my X view, you just click on here, or you can also just hold Alt and rotate, and you will see the different views. I want to lay this down. I'm pressing R right now. With R, I'm laying it down. But before I'm laying it down, I'm going to do Control-Shift-D, because, not Control-Shift, sorry, but I'm going to do Shift-D. With Shift-D, you duplicate something, but I don't want to move it, so I'm going to press R after that. And now I'm just rotating it. After I lay it down, G, Z to move it up, and now I have this avocado on the floor. We're going to move it, we're going to rotate it, we're going to add our other avocado right here. Rotate it, and kind of just lay it down. I mean, this kind of just visual. I don't want to make it so complicated. So I think actually this is a nice position where one is kind of laying on top of the other. You know, we're gonna make a kind of cool scene where the avocados are laying on a table kind of thing, right? This could be the way. I'm gonna rotate it this way. So the thing about Blender is that it's always the gumball, in a way, it's always snapped to the view. So you remember in Rhino we had to change it. In Blender, it's actually always snapped to that view. So wherever you're looking at it, it's wherever it's being located. And that's pretty useful for making scenes and things like that, just because it gives you a lot more flexibility when you're making scenes and things like that. So I'm going to place this avocado. I feel like this position was better. Actually, no. Wait, how do you undo? I forgot how to undo in Blender. Okay, whatever. How to redo, I mean. Undo, of course, is Control Z, but redo, I thought it was Control Shift Z, but it doesn't work. I think something like this looks kind of interesting. Okay, I'm just being picky now about the position of my avocados. This one's a little too flat, so let's just lay it up. This one, let's just lay it up. There, that's a nice view right there. So we have our nice avocados. Now we need to add some scenery to it, of course. So the same way we are adding nodes for textures in the shading tab, we're going to do the same thing in the layout tab. And if you do Shift A, you're going to see how now instead of nodes, you have just different elements that you want to add. In this case, we want to add a plane. And as you can see, Control Shift A, sorry, I keep saying Control Shift A, it's just Shift A, Mesh, Plane. And so now you have this little plane that's been created, but of course we need it a lot bigger. So just press S and just keep dragging until it's big enough. There you go. So now you have this nice kind of floor, and maybe you want to make your avocados touch it. You don't want your avocados floating. No one wants floating avocados. So let's make them touch the floor. And now let's start adding some lighting. So the same way you added your plane, now we're going to do Shift A, and we're going to go over light. We can use spot, point, or area. Area seems for me to work the best. And as you can see, a little light's been created. But of course, it's not in the position we want. So we want to shift G. We're going to press G and Z to move it up. And we're going to place it right on top of our avocados. We're going to move it around, of course. Maybe angle it a little bit towards it. So you just want to look around and move it until you angle it. And now we can start, just press S. I'm sorry. You can press S to make it a lot bigger and see it better. And now we can start also to add light to it, of course, because you want to see things. So, by default, you always have things to 10 power. It's nothing. So, for normal things that you model, 10 should be enough, but you always want to crank it up just because Rhino works in bigger file formats or in bigger units. So as you can see right away, just by adding some lights, it looks a lot better. Just because light is always good. So we're going to move it a little bit here, kind of rotate it, and we're going to Shift D. But before we do Shift D, let's actually get the light. This is like 10,000. Oh no, it's not 10,000. 10,000. That's kind of more the degree of light that I was looking for. And maybe let's do a more warm tone. So you can see, you go into the color of the light, and you can kind of add more of a warmer tone just to make it look cooler. Well, actually, let's add a cooler tone. Yeah. We can also, so now we can start duplicating these lights because you don't just want one light, you want a couple of them. So we're going to do Shift D, move it to the other side, and with R, rotate it to that position. If you grab the little yellow thing, you can start moving it around to a position. So now we have this kind of nicer lighting, but our seed looks a little too dead. Like we want it to kind of, maybe if we get closer. So we can start getting some lights closer than others, and we can start duplicating more. So it's just about making your scene a lot better. So you can make some backlights, just because backlights always add more to it. So if we want to duplicate it by 2, make it a lot brighter, maybe place this one somewhere around here. Good thing about backlights is that if you add a different color to it, and if you increase the size of it, there's kind of a nicer, as you can see, kind of just surrounds things nicer. And what we can do is give it a different color, just because different colors makes things cooler. Let's give it a yellowish color. So that way we have this kind of nice backlight with this yellow. So let's move it back a little bit further. And let's increase the power by times 2 again. And our backlight is working pretty nicely. Now, of course, we need to frame our camera. But I still need to... my seeds are still not looking so nice. So I'm going to go back into my shading tab. And something we need is an HDRI. So as you can see, this image behind this is an HDRI. And the entirety of this image is kind of becoming the reflective source and the light source of all of these elements. So we're going to add our own, of course, because right now, if you check again on scene lights and scene world, you only have nothingness and lights. So we're going to add our own. And in order to do that, we're going to go back to our shading, to our material tab, to our node tab, and we're going to go where it says object. We're going to change where it says world. So now you can see this is our world right now, and you can see that our background is gray, so this is gray. If you change this, our background will change, right? We can make it white, and of course this will pop out a lot more, but we don't want it just white. We actually just want we want an actual HDRI. So, I mean, to get an HDRI, we can always get it from a website or something. So it can always just be any image. It doesn't have to be an HDRI for a website. Usually HDRIs work better if you actually want to have something in the back you're looking at. But if you don't, you can always just go here, again, Shift A to add something, and we're going to add environment texture. When you go to environment texture, this is the texture that will go into environment. It's by default purple or pink just because there's nothing in there. But if we go into open and we go and find any picture, I guess it could be anything. I'm going to go into my wallpapers. Actually, I have this really cool wallpaper that I made with AI. I'm going to place this as a background. So you can see this is my wallpaper. And now there's this nice kind of color going on. I like the way the dark it's going with it. I'm also going to edit the material of our base. So you're going to select your base, click on new, and of course we're going to go back from here. We're on world, so we're going to go back on object. And all I'm going to do to this is just make it black and also add a lot of reflectiveness to it. Maybe not black, maybe a little lighter, so it reflects perfectly our avocados at the bottom. That looks pretty nice. And it also reflects our background. We can change things like, maybe let's make it not so reflective, just a little bit. It's a little bit, so it's a little bit blurred. And maybe we can add things, you can change a couple of values here, like this one. And it's so tropic. I don't know the actual details of why this does that, but it always makes it look cool. So I always crank it up, and it always does something interesting with the lighting and the reflections. So we're going to crank it up, and we're going to maybe rotate it a little bit. Actually, we can leave it like this. And we have these really cool reflections on it. Our second light, we're also going to kind of move it a little bit, rotate it. But I don't like the way it's being casted. So I need to get rid of its reflection. And I know Blender 4.0 added a feature where you can get rid of the reflections of some objects. So actually I think I'm gonna find it my own, I guess, in this way. I'm not so sure if it works. If it doesn't, I'll probably just skip this. But yeah, I'm not sure how this did it where you didn't have to do that. So I'm just gonna change this light into a point. So now we have this really nice point light, which we can place right here, and we have this really interesting kind of effect. Move it back a little bit, and I'm also gonna crank it up even more. Actually, times 2 again. So now we have this nice light. Increase the radius a lot more. I'm not sure if that was a good idea. That might be a little too much. Maybe let's keep it 0 so we can have this nice reflection. Somewhere around here. I have one here. Control Shift D to have another one here. So we have this kind of nice lighting going on. So now we're going to go back into our seed and make it more light. I think it needs a little more life, right? And I also want to add something else to our seed. I'm in my seed material. If you can see, since we've joined them now, they're kind of all together. You can't click one of them. You have to click them through here. And also on my seed, I'm going to go into subsurface, and I'm going to add a little bit of subsurface scattering. And what this does, actually, let's zoom in. This should make it so light kind of goes through it, and it makes it look kind of like skin. But I'm not sure. We can make it like transparent, but that's not what this should be doing. But like, if they change the way subsurface is working, so I'm not gonna touch it right now. But I'm gonna make it so the alpha kind of changes and kind of make it a little translucent, just so it looks a little bit like gold or something. Pretty cool. And so we're gonna go back into our layout. And so the last thing for us to add in order to make a really cool, in order to finalize our really cool avocados, I think we need a little bit more lighting. So I'm going to go into solid and add more of a general light. Shift A, we're going to go into light area. G, Z, move it up, make it a lot bigger with S, and of course rotate it 180 degrees. You just type 180 and it just rotates. Click enter. And I'm just going to make this kind of general light. I'm going to make it somewhere around 20,000. See how it does. 20,000 might not be enough. Let's time that by 10. That's something better. Let's times that by 10 again. Okay, now we're getting pretty bright stuff. So let's reduce it to 2 divided by 2. And let's kind of, should we just increase the size? Should maybe decrease the size. There you go, looks nicer. Let's divide this by 2 again, so it's not so bright. And now our color, we can also change the color of this. And if you add some color to it, the more color lights you add, the more kind of life you give to your scene. And so we're gonna add this kind of bluish white. And now we have this really cool looking avocados. So our last step, of course, is adding a camera to just take the picture of our really cool avocados. If we're going to do Shift A, we're going to go into camera. So our camera is created, and of course it's going to be here, and it's very small. So and how can we make it so I want my camera to go where I'm looking right now? Like literally where I'm looking, I want my camera to be here. So it's actually a simple shortcut. You just want to click Control, Alt, and then 0. And now you get your camera straight to where you're looking. But as soon as you look away, your camera won't follow you. And here you have your little toggle camera here, or you can just click 0 and you go back to your camera. The way you want to do it so you can move with the camera, you want to press N so you get some of these adjustments. And we want to go all the way down into view right here. And when you go on view, just make sure you click on camera to view. That's it. And you'll have this kind of dash line around your camera, and now you're able to move around and your camera holds onto it. So now you can frame it pretty nicely. Now there's also this orangey light, which only comes when you have your camera selected, and that means your camera is selected, of course. So what happens now is that you can go into your camera settings and you can change a couple things about it. So you can change things like the focal length. I can increase it to give it more of this kind of full-on look. And I can also decrease it so it's kind of this exploded kind of nice look. And kind of do this. I mean, you can do all sorts of things to make your avocados look cool. I'm going to do something very basic and just do like 60 millimeters and just zoom out a lot. Or you can also get some detail shots, you know, kind of to showcase some of the nice shapes of your avocados. So maybe you can do like, we can do one like this. Maybe do like 80 so we can zoom in nicely into these. And we just frame it nicely. And we put them here, somewhere here in the middle. And let's just do something like this. Just render something like this. So now that we have your camera placed, now you can uncheck this. So now that your camera stays where you want it to be. Your camera also looks very small, so you can always scale it too. But I think that affects the way it looks. No, it doesn't. So you can always scale it just so it looks bigger, but it doesn't affect the way your camera looks. That's just so you can see it on the viewport. And now you're ready to render. So now all you need to do, last things you need to do before you render, and probably before we did any of this, you should have done something where you go into a file. Well, not only save. Yeah, let's save. Avocado render. Not only save, of course, that's super important, but we also want to go into preferences, which is in edit actually, not in files. Preferences. And when you open preferences, you want to go into system all the way down here and make sure that you either have, if you have a graphics card, you want to make sure that this is checked to your graphics cards. Either if it's CUDA or OptiX, it doesn't matter. You will have either or both of them or none of them, but just make sure that you're not doing it with your CPU. So just make sure it's always your GPU, right? I mean, if you don't have the GPUs shown here, it's probably because you don't have a dedicated GPU. But if you do, just make sure it's clicked. It's not the other one, because this will make your render times a lot longer. So that's the first thing. Just make sure that you do that. And then when you go down here, you can save preferences, whatever, and then close it. That's the first step. And now we can go a little bit onto the settings of rendering. So we go back into our render thing right here, of course. Make sure it's in GPU compute. Make sure it's in cycles, like we said before. And as you can see, these are the samples of your image. But these are the samples of your render. This is the viewport is where you're looking. The render is where you want it to be. And you want to have denoise checked in. Max samples, 4,000 is a little too much. So you can divide this by 2. You know, you want a nice render. 2,000 is more than enough. Just leave it at this. You can also add different things like color management, but we're not going to go through all this. It's too complicated. And then we're also going to go into output. And we can also change our resolution. So we want to make something like 2K. So you can click both of these at the same time, drag them, and then times 2. And you have this duplicated, but I actually did it to the same. So you want to do 1 by 1 times 2, and then this times 2. So we have a nice 2K image, right? So now we can go into our view. And the last thing we need to do is just go up here. Let's actually go into our normal view so we don't render this and render the other at the same time. We just go up here and just click on render image. And as you can see, our image is being rendered. It's a pretty nice process. And after this renders, which will take somewhere around 5 minutes or so, just because it's 2K and because it's a high samples, that's when we can go over how to save this and just post it. All right, so it's finished rendering. It took like a minute or two. If you zoom in, you can see the nice details of our nice render. And as you can see, we didn't add a lot of things to our materials, but you still get these really nice effects just because of the lighting. So the lighting is very important. So you can see how you get these really cool effects. So now we're ready to just save. If you go into image all the way up here, you can just click save. And your image is saved wherever you want. So we can save here, avocado 1. Save as image, and that's it. Your image is saved. You're ready to use it. You're ready to post these, ready to showcase to the world your modeling skills. And going forward, we will make a lot more modeling and other tutorials to use Grasshopper, other tools. So if you followed up to this last episode of the avocado modeling tutorial, please feel free to subscribe, follow, and join our Discord, because Discord is where we'll be given all of our assets, all the different assets for students, for designers, for people in the realm of design. These are tools like different assets, image assets, tutorials, and even scripts, because we're planning on doing a bunch of scripts for Grasshopper and maybe other softwares. So stay tuned for that. Join the Discord. Go onto our website, be part of the community. And I'm Daniel Lasso, and thank you so much. I also really want to see all of your avocados, how they turned out. Please send your renders over. Send them over in our Instagram or post them. I will repost them totally, 100%. If you have really cool ones, we'll even make a compilation of all these avocados and just showcase them to the world, showcase your modeling skills. And we'll show that we are really cool people. So, have a good rest of the day, and bye-bye.